Thanks for coming. It's so cool to see some of you who were working on the island last weekend. Adrian and Claire. Jamie is a professional mudslinger. We've slung mud together. Dan is interested in soils and how they pertain to trees. We all can out ourselves right now, maybe, about what would actually bring you to something like this. Like, what's your interest in soil, or what's your affinity to soil, or if you want to start with just like your most recent memory of soil, or a very poignant memory of soil. And let me know your name, or let us all know your name, preferred pronouns too. I ran a landscaping business for about 17 years. It was the ecological landscaping business. And in between that, the glue of that was a community composting business that I ran for about 12 years. That was part of my transition from working in private landscapes into a more public interface. And I grew up rurally. And so my interest in soil kind of sparked when I came into the city in college, and I was like, wow, I had never seen soil that looks like this, because I've always seen soils as being rich or cared for or full of organic matter, and I was just super fascinated by soils, and that junk in soils actually is what got me my undergraduate degree in archaeology, because I was like, look at all this junk. It's amazing. It's telling the story of what we do and how we live. So I've my fascination with soils is mostly towards habitat, but because I'm a grower, I'm an orchardist, and I raise a lot of different birds and do a lot of growing. I have bees. I'm really interested in soils for, not just how they support life and build habitat for all the creatures, but how they are productive for foods, or how they are supportive of our food system. So hopefully what I'm going to talk about you'll start seeing how there's some parallels between that. So what I thought we could do, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's on the table. And then I thought we could do some collecting, which is what the bowls are for, and what the bags are for. And then I have a lot of loops. These are 10-time magnifications, and I would say most of you have used one of these before, or maybe some of you haven't. And it's like carrying a microscope in your pocket. It's what jewelers use. And so we're going to be able to look at some of the structures we have, but I've brought, I want to talk a little bit about soils first, in the sense when I think about soils and how soils are different from, where were those notes that I put in my purple piece of paper? Blue. So when I think about soils, I think about them being only half solid. So we think about them as solid, but they're actually half solid and half not solid. So there's a lot of pore space in most land soils at different degrees. And when you think about all these particles, because soil is made of particles, as they come together, there's always a space between where those particles lie. And the general take is there's about 50% pore space. Of that 50% pore space, half of that is air or other gases, and half of it is water, okay? And that air and water is what feeds the microbial life that is feeding on the mineral and the organic composition of soil. But I'm going to talk a lot about minerals, because they're 80 to 90% of most soils. They're finite. We can't make them fast. Where we can do a lot of things that help organic matters in soils and improve the biological composition of soils. We can't do much about these finite things called the rock itself, right? Because we live on a rock. There's only so much of it. Every once in a while, some, meteors come in and maybe add a little bit of chunk of iron. But really, we're kind of in or we have some tectonic plates shift, and we have some volcanoes exploding and adding a little bit more rock. But in general, we have a finite amount of minerals. We have a lot of different minerals, tens of thousands of them, so we're not going to go into so many of them, but we know some of them that are important for our bodies, and the same ones that are important for our bodies are the same ones that are important for plants. And it's interesting when you start looking at soil mineralogy and you're looking at those compositions and what they do for plants. It's like, oh yeah, I also need that. They need that for stem strength. I need that for bone strength. And you start seeing these parallels between why we eat certain plants and why we take certain plants into our bodies and why we want those plants really healthy so we can take those in. So I'm going to talk more about minerals, but we will be talking about the soil life as well. So the thing about land-based soils and soils that are more hydrophilic, or for plants that are more hydrophilic, hydro being water, philic being love, is that if we look at a natural shoreline going down to a lake or a river or a creek, what we're going to see is a slow transition from more open, aerated, oxygenated soils to slower and slower. The composition of those soils change and the oxygen levels go down until they're submerged. So that pore space, instead of having air, has more gases and has more water filled into it. So I have brought some aquatic soils, and because we're here in a city where we have REI, and then we have cement, and then we have an impenetrable seawall that interrupts anything that was a natural shoreline of this river that would have estuaries and all these, beautiful areas to fish and with habitat for creatures. We have this drop off, and then we have these islands that were created, and then over there you have some broken cement and some plants that have kind of moved into there, and there's some soil creation, and there was some raccoons spotted over there just now for like washing some food that they found, which was great. So we do have some shorelines along this river that are forming. They're eroding out from something's like piling in. If you go down the south side, we'll see material yards where they're dumping, limestone. Gravel is kind of like it going into the river, and then that's catching sediment and stuff is growing out of there. And it's really, really interesting to start seeing those like first soils start forming because the rock is there to catch stuff. And what's happening here, because these rivers have been, or these floating platforms have been here for how long? This original core grouping? 3.5 years. And so what they do is when they come in and they build soils, they're putting together what is considered an organic component and what is considered a mineral component. And they've kind of done it, they've kind of just filled these spaces, okay? And so the organic component in this case is mulch, industrial mulch from Streets and Sand or from Home Depot or wherever they get it from the bag or they get it bulk. And then they're using leca, and I don't have some of the leca, but we're gonna find some, but I have some leca from this weekend disguised as rocks. This is puffed terracotta clay, just like this. That's added, they've added some colorant to, and it's porous and very lightweight. It's like Cocoa Puffs, but ones that will break your teeth. And you're welcome to look at them. This is kind of a touch and feel table, you guys. So this is what we're using down at Bubbly Creek, and we have a different kind of leca that's less porous that we're using here, so we're gonna grab some to put them on the table. But this is their mineral component, but the thing is, this doesn't break down into food, okay? This is a structure. And so when we think about minerals hold things up. The rock holds things up and in place, but it's also slowly weathering with water, with freezing, with biological action, fungi, lichen, mosses, everything that's working on the rock slowly breaks it down into a mineral food. So this one doesn't. This is fairly inert, as they call it, recalcitrant. It'll resist decomposition for quite some time. And so we're going to look at that, but I'm going to talk a little bit about these components, and then we're going to go on a quick walk. And we have some bags, and you don't have another shovel around, just one? We'll pass this around. We're going to grab some samples, okay? And we'll grab some samples, remember where you got it, and then we'll grab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 samples at least for here, and then we're going to put them in there, and then we're all going to start studying them. But we're really going to be looking at soils start with rock. They start with our mother rock. And what's our mother rock of this area? Limestone. So limestone is this was an old ocean, okay? And it's a lot of bodies of diatoms and tiny little silica animals and shells and waters that pass through there. So the calcium and the silica richness of those bodies have slowly died, and they've fallen down, and they start creating these sediments, okay? And it's very layered. So I'm going to pass these around. We'll pass it around 2 different directions. And if you want to start looking at these, we can look at them. You can do this with glasses too, but you get it close to your eye and bring this close until it comes into surface, which is really close. Really close. Don't go like this. No. Okay? So, whoop. And we can carry these around and look at them. You want to look at some leca. These are really nice. You want one of these for your birthday. So the ones in the plastic boxes are about $5. The ones in the leather boxes, they're more like 30 or 35. You can look at your fingernail. You can look at your skin until the rock comes around. Here you go. One more. Anybody else want another one? Make sure there's enough going around. Stephen, get in here. And what you're going to see in limestone is that it's very layered. It's layered, and some of this limestone can be really hard and have a tight pore space. And when it has a tight pore space, you see it being used in buildings. And when it has a more open pore space, you see it being chunked out for gravel and sand. And so what you'll see here, if you can look at this one, this is a piece of limestone. You can see the different colored layers, and you see some red layer, and that red layer is iron being expressed. So that's an oxidized layer there, that red oxide. But so limestone, because it comes in layers, tends to trap things. So the other things that you find in limestone will be things like chert or flint. This is something that you can nap with. It's very glassy, it's very high silica. And people used to nap that and make scraping tools and heads for arrows and things like that. So that's something you're going to find in limestone. The other thing you're going to find in limestone is quartz, which is silica, SiO2. So it's silica. Silicon is elements. Silica is quartz. On the back you see the limestone, and then you see the quartz crystals. Here's another piece of limestone. You can see some of the different oxidation. So oxidation means it comes with carrying some more oxygen, and it's slowly breaking down. So when you think about yellow oxide or ochre, like yellow ochre, red oxide, those are both irons. Black oxide is hematite. Okay, so because limestone comes in layers, it communicates really, it's very porous and it communicates really well with water, atmospheric water, water that's running through it, water that's falling from the sky, etc. When I say atmospheric, it could just be, fog or other moistures. And because of that, you're going to see those colors. So I wanted to show you that. So as with time and with temperature and freezing and thawing and water and other biology working on stuff, we start breaking that rock more and more and more down into smaller components. And that first component on soil is called sand, okay? So sand is at, and we'll have time to look at this later, but sand starts at under 2 millimeters. Anything over than 2 millimeters is a pebble, okay? So there's a bunch of guys in the 19th century were cracking rocks and like, okay, when you try to buy rocks of various shapes, someone says they're big or they're small, and they're like, yeah, but we have to standardize this. So they cracked a bunch of rocks and they started creating a standard of aggregates so it could be communicated internationally, because they would get shipments of rocks and they're like, this is too small or this is too big, this isn't the right size. So they had to do a development. So this is limestone, and I want you to look at it. This is limestone that is land-based limestone. This is land-based limestone because it's jagged edges. It hasn't been worn smooth by water, okay? So that's at 2 millimeters. And the next grade would be 1 millimeter. I'm gonna give you this one too, okay? And then I'm gonna give you the finest one. That's the finest one. So when we're thinking about sand is literally, scientists talk about very coarse to medium, to fine, to very fine. But it comes with measurements, okay? All in metric. These are all limestone sands. I'll show you some other ones. These are various levels. These are all sands. So as further weathering and biological action, we get to the next particle. And the next particle would be, after sand would be what? Silt. Okay, it's silt. When people call that mud, or when you're swimming and it's really soft. So this is silt. Mostly silt. Not totally silt, that's upland soil. It's silt, and you're welcome to touch it. I encourage you to. In fact, when I was getting this silt sample, I found this beautiful piece of, should travel with this beautiful piece of green pottery. It was kind of amazing. So I left it in there. So that's silt and sand together. That is found at a shoreline, a natural shoreline, where you start seeing silt and sand come together. And this last one, this is some gloop. So you're gonna have to stick your finger in. We can always stick our finger in the water, right? Stick your finger. This is silt itself. This is from underwater. Okay. So this is silt. And the thing about silt is that it holds a lot of, because it's so fine, it has so much surface area, it holds a lot of nutrient. Holds a lot of nutrient, which means if you smell it, it probably smells like a little bit of fetid water, right? If you smell it a little bit. But it's it's full of nutrient. So if you want to, what you do with a loop, you do with the loop is get it close to your eye. Get loop demos. Get it close to your eye. Pretend you're a jeweler and you're looking at a diamond. Get it close to your eye and then bring it. You can do it with your hand first. You can practice and bring it until it comes into focus. And you're like, oh. Okay. All right. So we have silt as our next particle size, and it's very, very, silt is carried by water. We find it a lot by creeks and rivers. It's in river deltas. It's really, really rich. Agriculturally, histories of cultures have rich culture development in delta regions because of the silt deposit. Every time the river floods, this beautiful nutrient covers the area, and it's like the perfect area to grow food on, okay? So silt is very nutritive. But if you feel it, it's really soft. It kind of slides around. There's not a lot of structure to it, okay? We'll play with it later. The last thing we have on the table was super sticky. This is Chicago River clay. I've been paddling for a while to find my clay. This is it, you guys. Southside! Southside clay! This is from the canal, so very, very sticky. But we have natural clay here. It's amazing. Here's a clunk of dry clay. So I want you to look at this. So we're looking at the finest component of soil will be clay. Clay has the smallest, you can walk things around. Clay has the smallest particle size, the most ability to hold water, right? When it dries out, it can be hydrophobic, it'll repel water. You can still see some red and orange in there because it is interacting. It's getting those beautiful, beautiful oxides. And so clay is, imagine if we're talking about rock and over so much time becomes clay. Clay is the most ancient. It's the most ancient material. It's the smallest particle. And there's really, really fine clays and there's coarser clays. This is a coarser clay here. But this is, imagine, this is limestone plus thousands and thousands of years. So when you touch clay, when you do activated, when you use clay inside of your body, or when you use it on your body for your skin, or when you're touching it and making something, you're in contact with ancient, ancient, ancient material, ancient minerals. So this is very nutritive, and it has charges that will help hold nutrition, but it will also, this is where a lot of contaminants will be held, is in clays because it has the most surface area, so it can hold the most. So when we're looking at contaminated soils, most of the contaminant will be in clay, okay?
So would that one be very contaminated because it's
I haven't tested it yet, but it's at the lab. I'll find out.
How did you get it? Where is it in the river?
I got it by going in a boat and paddling until I saw it,
Okay.
and then taking it out with my paddle and then throwing it in my kayak. And then until it was too heavy, I got about 10 pounds, and then I was like, that immediately changes the boat because I have it in the back, and immediately my boat was a little, lifted.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm not going to tell you because that's the whole delight. You get to find it yourself if you paddle enough.